Hello there. This is a homily for the third Sunday of Lent in 2021. And if you've looked through the readings, you will have noticed how much God tells us about Himself here. And I'm taking this as a real cleanup of our idea of God that we have. Very crucial because we can quite easily create false gods. The first reading from Exodus does give the injunction against making false gods, but we can actually slide into having a false idea of God without even planning to do so. So this piece of Exodus here gives us a wonderful explanation. First of all, God explains that He is the one who brought them out of the land of Egypt. You shall not place other gods besides me. And in a modern comfort culture, in a country that's pretty well off, we have gods all around us, metal gods. Cell phones for many people are their gods. We have computers that we turn into gods, cars, success in our lives, all these kinds of things that completely misunderstand what a God is. And so God Himself is saying, look, I'm the real God, and I brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shan't carve idols for yourselves, etc., etc. I am a jealous God, inflicting punishment for their father's wickedness. God is very protective of us. And on the positive side, that is a real wonder that He is caring for us every second of the day. But on the negative side, He wants to be the only one who is relating to us in this very profound way that God relates to His creation. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. So even be careful using the word God or the name of God, simply because you're bringing it into a situation where it shouldn't be. I will not leave unpunished the one who takes His name, my name, in vain. Keep holy the Sabbath. Then, after saying that, honor your father and your mother, and you go through, or he goes through the rest of the commandments, all the way up to not coveting your neighbor's wife, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything else that belongs to him. So we've gone from God presenting who He is to Him telling us, look, if you want to live before me, to be in my presence, then this is how you're going to have to behave. And that's where these commandments point. Don't kill, don't commit adultery, you shall not steal, etc., etc., not bear false witness. Our culture is almost a culture of false witness. And so here we have God telling us Himself who He is, then saying, look, if you want to live your life in my hands, this is how you're going to have to behave. Now, then, and this is a little complicated for me to get to because of the way this is set up, but here I'm taking all the readings from cycle B. Cycle A would be used if we were going through the scrutinies for the preparation of people to be baptized on Easter Saturday night. The psalm that follows this, you have the words of everlasting life. Not only has He given certain commandments, first reading, but He has also now gone through the psalmist to point us to the rest of the law of God. Your law is perfect, it's trustworthy, and something that gets repeated again and again. It gives wisdom to the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, etc., etc. And this is all to do with the psalmist realizing, yes, God is the overarching ethic of my life. I am simply trying to learn it, trying to live it out as best I can. Good lesson for Lent, and I am trying to be faithful to this all of my life. Now, the second reading is taken from Paul's letter to the Corinthians. And here Paul says something that ties in with this idea of God communicating with us. The foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom. The weakness of God is stronger than human strength. So here you have Paul acknowledging that this higher ethic that God holds present in front of us all day, every day, this is more powerful than human wisdom. And boy, could we say a lot about that and the ideologies that are bouncing around this country and hitting people over the head and destroying their jobs and canceling their books and all the rest of it, just to give you a few examples. And the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. As much as people around us love power and try to get power over us, and of course they're doing this by shame and all the rest of it, the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. In other words, we stand with God. We can stand against this shaming culture, this canceling culture, this really vicious culture which has built up over the last several years. Lastly, then, we get to the gospel. And at first sight, it looks odd. It's the story of the cleansing at the temple. You know the story as well as I do. And you know what Jesus did. He drove out the money changers. He drove out the people who were selling their animals. All, of course, which was necessary because Jews were coming to the temple from all over the world, and they needed people to change their currency into the temple currency that they could then use for offerings and for paying for offerings, which they had to offer. And so Jesus is asked, why did you do this? Destroy this temple in 3 days and I will rebuild it. And the punchline for me seems to be in the last part here, that Jesus is obviously got a certain message, protecting his Father's house. Don't forget the commandments, the tablets of the commandments were supposed to be in the Holy of Holies in the temple. So in fact, all of this activity, the money changing and the sale of animals and so on, was going on in front of the law of God. And Jesus knew that that simply was not suitable, because we have to maintain a certain attitude, if you want, a certain posture, a certain way of being before the law of God, which has been exalted so much in the reading from Exodus and then the Psalm, and then, of course, in Paul's letter to the Corinthians. Lastly, then, you have Jesus, who is himself God, obviously, does not trust human nature. Quote, he himself understood it well. That's the last line of the gospel. And here we are seeing just how frail, corrupt, fragile human nature is. We do chase after all kinds of ridiculous things. To look good to other people, to satisfy our own sense of inadequacy or whatever. And here, in fact, what Jesus is doing is reminding us, and the church is reminding us, that in fact human nature is very fickle. On its own, it is terrible. But under this ethic of the law, we can become holy people who are worthy of standing before God. Great lesson for Lent. Thank you.